This is a Film Stories original podcast. Welcome back everyone to the Xcast. The truth is in here. I'm Tony Black, your host as ever, and I've got another interview today, and I'm really delighted that for the first time on the Xcast, I've got someone who's been on the show as an actor properly. It's really exciting actually, and it's my real pleasure to have on a man who appeared in 3 episodes of The X-Files over 2 seasons. He played a character that, even though he wasn't in a massive amount of the show, he's been really fondly remembered by the fan base and by everyone involved. I'm delighted to invite on Scott Bellis.
Hey there, how's it going?
Very good, thanks, Scott. Yeah, you, of course, played the character of Max Fenig on the show in the episodes Fallen Angel, Tempus Fugit, and Max in the 1st and 4th seasons of the show. And obviously you've got a long and distinguished career in acting, in theatre, in all these different areas, which we're going to touch on, as well as talk about the X-Files. So I really appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on, Scott.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Yeah.
It's obviously been a long time since you were on the show.
The first episode that I was in, I think was in I think we shot it in the autumn of '93. So my daughter had just been born. She's 23 now. So yeah, a while.
Wow. I bet that seemed like no time at all, really, hasn't it?
It does go by pretty quickly.
Well, like I say, I'm really grateful for you to sparing your time today to talk about something that was a long time ago for you. So I'm going to start off in that vein by asking you the questions I always ask everyone who comes on the show, as regular listeners will know, the 5 questions of X. But I'm going to tweak it slightly today because I'm going to start off, instead of asking you how did you first discover the X-Files, I'm going to ask you how did you first come to be on the X-Files back in 1993?
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, the X-Files was one of several series that were shooting in Vancouver at the time. I don't know if you know much about the film industry in Vancouver, but you know, even though we're in Canada here, we get a lot of productions coming up from the States to shoot here. So it was a new series, and nobody knew too much about it in the community. I think at the time that I auditioned, they had just really started production a few weeks earlier. So my agent basically was just like a lot of other jobs. You know, my agent sent me out for an audition. I don't remember reading the whole script beforehand, so I didn't really get too clear a sense of what the style or the mood of the show was. But I remember remember what scene I read for the audition and that kind of thing. And I remember meeting the director, Larry Shaw, I remember that quite well. And yeah, so that's how I got involved in it. It was basically an audition. There was a callback. I remember I had to go a second time. And yeah, and then they basically asked me to be in the show. So yeah, pretty basic.
Well, yeah, I suppose, you know, fans forget that back then, I mean, you appeared pretty much at the beginning, really. Episode 10, I think it was, Fallen Angel. So in the 1st season. So we're going back a long time. I think we forget that at that time, it wasn't a sensation. It didn't become that until you reappeared later on. So when you first auditioned, yeah, I guess for you, it was just another job, really, wasn't it, in this machine in Vancouver?
It was interesting. There was some, you know, I remember that it did seem different. Like it was something kind of new and interesting. So yeah, it had that kind of feeling about it that there was something new and they were trying to do something different, and you know, people were trying to sort of put their finger on, you know, what they were trying to accomplish with the show and what they were trying to do with it and that kind of thing. But yeah, there was no sense of sensation or anything about it at that time. In fact, I remember talking to, you know, some of the crew on set, and they were so befuddled by the show. They had they had never worked on anything quite like it before. And, you know, a lot of people were questioning whether it was going to finish its first season. So it was long before they had any idea that they had tapped into something that was really interesting and different.
It's amazing to think that they were questioning it right back at the beginning. That's remarkable, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fascinating to hear that side of it, really, from you. But I don't know, did you much follow the show beyond your appearance, really, and then when you came back in season 4?
Oh yeah. I used to watch it. I used to watch it quite regularly. I don't think I caught every episode in those first few seasons, but I did. It was so much fun for us in Vancouver because, you'd always see your friends on the show.
Yeah.
You'd see somebody would be playing a state trooper, or somebody would be a scientist. I had a couple of friends in the episode I was in. Alvin Sanders, who's now the president of our actors union here in British Columbia, I think played the sheriff in the teaser.
Right. Okay.
Episode of Fallen Angel. Yeah. So there's quite a few people, so yeah, it was fun to watch the show from that perspective, but I was also really, it was interesting to watch what they did with the show and the style that they were shot it in and the storylines and some of the story arcs were really interesting. So yeah, I watched it fairly regularly. I don't think I watched it right through till the end of the series. When it moved to California, I know a lot of us felt a little chagrin when they moved the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, and felt that it didn't have quite the same feel and mood to it as it had before, but I did follow it for quite a while. Yeah,
it's interesting actually because a lot of fans as well and a lot of people involved have said similar that even though it was good after it moved from Vancouver, it wasn't quite the same. It did lack having Vancouver there with all its amazing different kinds of locations you can get out of that city and that area. Yeah, something did change. So no, I can see what you mean with that really. But out of those seasons you did watch more regularly, did you have a favourite particular episode?
Yeah, I had a couple. I mean, one of my favorite characters was the guy who ate people's livers, and then
yeah,
do you know the one I'm talking about?
Yeah, Toombs. Yeah,
Toombs. Yeah, that was his name.
Yeah,
great character. Yeah, I just thought that was such a bizarre, off the wall kind of idea, and yeah, I had a lot of appreciation for that story. I thought it was great. Oh, one of my other favorite episodes, it's so twisted, was my friend Karen Conoval played the mother that lived under the floorboards.
Mrs. Peacock.
She's such a great... Yeah, Mrs. Peacock, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that, and it was just so weird, her and her crazy family and all the stuff they were getting up to, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I thought some of those sort of weirder, darker episodes appealed more to my personality, I guess. I don't know. I like those ones.
She was particularly brilliant, actually, in that episode, because she spent the whole thing, I think she was paraplegic in the episode, so she spent the whole thing in heavy makeup, didn't she, under a bed when she was rolled out on wheels, screaming, and it was amazing. Yeah. Amazing performance, amazing transformation.
Yeah, she was like this sort of weird matriarch who they kept under the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was bizarre.
Yeah, amazing. It's really great that you had so many friends on the show as well and everything like that. That's really nice to look at it from that perspective. So I don't know if you could pin down a particularly favourite season of the show when you were watching and things like this.
I think I have the box set of season 1 here around the house, and I remember looking at it. And one of my favorite things about watching the show is in the early stages, watching the show kind of move through different styles and trying to find its feet, like trying to figure out what it is in a certain way, because the episodes kind of ranged quite a bit in terms of their style and their content and the kinds of stories that they were pursuing. And so I have to say my favorite is actually the first season.
Okay.
When it was just new and embryonic and trying to figure out what it was interesting watching the journey of that for me.
Yeah, it was learning, wasn't it, as it went, and obviously you'd have been in the thick of that with Fallen Angel, seeing the way they were working and doing things. So, it's even I can understand that. Yeah, completely.
I mean, I enjoyed some of the I'd say the earlier seasons were probably my favorites, sort of, up to sort of season 4. I enjoyed some of the character development and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Well, speaking of characters, did you have a particular favourite when you were watching? I mean, this doesn't necessarily need to be Mulder or Scully either. It could be anyone you saw that you thought struck a chord with you, really. Yeah,
in terms of, we talked about Toombs. He was great. I mean, the story arc with Krychek I thought was really, really interesting. I enjoyed his journey. I enjoyed the stories with Mulder and his sister trying to find his sister. What was going on with all that? Those kind of story arcs I appreciated a lot. In terms of specific characters, gosh, I don't know. I mean, I think I sort of remember the show more in terms of the stories that appealed to me rather than the specific characters, you know? Yeah, I sort of think of the episodes more in terms of their whole content rather than the specific characters. In terms of they just did the new season last year.
Yeah,
and I did enjoy the lizard guy, the 10,000-year-old. That was pretty funny.
He was brilliant, wasn't he? Yeah. Actually, yeah. I was going to ask you that. Did you catch all of the new season, or did you just see that one?
I did catch a couple of them. Yeah, I didn't see all of them. I did catch a couple of them, and I thought they did. I particularly enjoyed that episode because it kind of harkened back to some of the campier episodes that were in the earlier part of the season. And I had an appreciation for that. I know a lot of people didn't really like that, but I thought it was great.
Yeah, because it was Darren Morgan again, getting back to the comedy and the the satire and things like that. And of course, they filmed season 10 back in Vancouver.
Yes, they did. Yeah,
they came home, I guess, didn't they? Really, for that season,
they did come home. Yeah. Yeah, it's great to have the show in the city again, for sure.
Did you see any filming or anything like that? Or did you, while you were on your travels, or was there a buzz about the city when they were there?
Yeah, they're always shooting out in the woods somewhere, right? That show, so they're always up in we have a watershed forest reserve area, which is very popular for film crews to shoot in, and it's not that far. It's only about a 45-minute drive, but it is way out of the way, so there's not a lot of traffic through there. So if you're shooting outside, they tend to find areas that are pretty out of the way and that kind of thing. I mean, it's sometimes you drive past you drive past film shoots in Vancouver all the time here, but it's not always evident what's shooting. Could be a lot of different things. There's quite a bit of production in the city at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're in a bit of a boom again here, actually, in Vancouver because the Canadian dollar has dropped in value in comparison to the American dollar. So we're getting more production up here as they get a little more bang for their buck when they
That's great. That's really good. And as the X-Files proved, and a lot of the other shows that were filmed up there, things like Smallville and all these other shows, there's so much range up there, isn't there? Of the kind of things that can be filmed and kind of locations you can get out of it. It makes complete sense, doesn't it, to go up there?
Yeah. There's a lot of great locations within a relatively short distance. Because we've got mountains, we've got woods, we've got the beach, we've got very urban downtown, we've got lots of suburbs. There's all kinds of locations, and it's all pretty close together. So it makes it easier on film crews.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. My last specific question on this would be that. Was there any particular scene or any moment that you remember when you were watching the show that stood out to you as being something that was particularly fun or one of your favourites? Did anything leap out when I say that?
Oh, well, there's the scene in my first episode that I was in, Fallen Angel, where I'm having a seizure.
Yes, yeah.
And Mulder comes to talk to me about something, and he knocks on the door, and he hears some thrashing around. He comes in, and I'm having a full seizure. And then I kind of come out of it, and I have a very groggy conversation with him, and I'd never really done anything like that before. And that was also the scene that I had to audition with. I think they were looking for somebody who, they were, I guess there were they wanted to, accurately, as much as they could, portray somebody who was having that kind of physical distress. So that, I talked to a couple of friends of mine who had diabetic seizures, and who I had a friend who is epileptic, and I talked to him about what did he feel in his body, and what kind of experience that was when you go through something like that. And so I'd say that was pretty memorable in terms of the work I put into studying that, and so I could portray it accurately, and I think they were pretty happy with how it came out. That was pretty memorable. The end of the episode, too, was kind of memorable because they hung me on a crane and they hung me in midair in a harness right at the end of the episode when my character's getting abducted again. And we were in this cold warehouse in North Vancouver, and they sort of strung me up there and shone these big lights on me. And, it it was, I don't know, it was kind of a crazy thing. They were sort of flying me around and flashing lights and asking me to shiver and quake and do all this kind of stuff. It was a little crazy.
That must have been a fun afternoon.
Yeah. And then shooting the 2-part episode was also in season 4 was also kind of memorable because of the airplane fuselage set we were on. It was on gimbals so that they could rock it and they could do all kinds of things, and sucking me out the door and all that kind of stuff was pretty exciting. Yeah, so it was great. There was lots of good memories.
I mean, let's track back a little bit then. I just wanted to start with a simple question, really. And I mean, how did you get into acting in the first place? I mean, I assume you've lived in the Vancouver area all your life. Am I right in thinking that?
Yeah, that's right. I'm born and raised in Vancouver, and I've been acting now for almost 30 years. And most of my career's been here in Vancouver. I do work across Canada, but I'd say the bulk of my work is right here at home. So I'm lucky that way.
Was there a particular starting point for you way back when?
Oh, I was a very shy kid with a lot of energy, and I was always looking for outlets for it. And drama seemed like a pretty good fit, so I took some classes in high school, and then sort of graduated from high school with not really much idea of what I wanted to do with my life, and I kind of wandered around and did this job and that job. And finally, somebody suggested that I audition for a theater training program here in Vancouver called Studio 58. And I got into that program, and I did 3 years of sort of conservatory style acting training. And I came out of there with some skills and started working, and the rest is kind of history.
And you've obviously, I think you've done more than just television and things like that, and movies. You've done a real range of stuff, haven't you? So, what would you say your first love is in terms of acting? Is it TV or movies, or is it the theatre?
Well, it really is the theatre. I mean, I'm theatre trained, and 95% of the work I do is in the theatre. I'm very heavily involved in a Shakespeare festival that we run here. In Vancouver, that we started as a cooperative venture in 1990. And
is that Bard at the Beach?
Yeah, Bard on the Beach is what it's called. Yeah, it has a kind of a campy name, but we do we do pretty well with it. And we present over 200 performances every summer, and we played over 100,000 people. And we employ a lot of people, and it's great fun. It's in a park. We have 2 stages. We produce 4 shows every year. It's great fun. It's a great way to spend the summer working on these amazing plays. And but I work for other theater companies in town and across the country. Right now, I'm doing a musical at the Arts Club Theater Company, which is our largest theater producer. And I still look for opportunities to work in film, but it's just that the offers I get tend to come from the theater community. So I'm quite happy to go where I'm wanted. Although I've been doing a little bit more film the last year or so. So who knows what'll happen.
The Bard on the Beach sounds particularly great, actually, and I did a bit of, because I like to do a little bit of research when I speak to someone, and I did look it up, and I did see all the different shows, and you've directed stuff, haven't you, as well, to do with Bard on the Beach and beyond?
I did one a couple of years ago. I did the Comic Bearers, and I'm going to do the 2 Gentlemen of Verona next summer there, and directing is something I got into about 8 or 9 years ago, and it's really exciting. It's a different way of doing the work, and I love collaborating with. It's really great when you're a director. When you're an actor, you're working mostly with either a director or other actors, but when you're directing, you're working with people who do all kinds of different things. You're working with marketing people, and you're working with set designers and sound designers and lighting designers, and all these kind of different skill sets that I just know nothing about, but it's really great to learn about them and work with people who do things that are quite different from you, but are still, putting their energies into the same project. It's really great.
And have you found that through doing that, you've worked with people who you've known for years and people that you've maybe worked on TV shows and movies with in Vancouver? Is it like a collective group of people, or Is that not the case?
Well, we're a pretty small community here in Vancouver. The theater community is fairly small. I mean, Vancouver's a sort of a medium-sized city. It's about a 2.5 million population. So the arts community is large enough to carve out a career, but it's small enough that you can get to know quite a bit of the people here. So it's actually quite a great feeling. It feels very communal, and you do get the chance to work with people over and over again, which is really great. When you get together for on the first day on a film or on working in rehearsal on a play or something like that, you work with somebody before, you have a bit of a shorthand with them. There's a familiarity there. You maybe know how each other works a little bit. You can kind of get down to it a little quicker and start mucking about and making things happen. So it's a good thing.
Oh, that's great. That's really good. That is really good. So let's go back to the X-Files, and let's just talk about how you came back. Obviously, you filmed Fallen Angel in 1993, and it was a one-off role, obviously, as Max. But he stuck around in people's minds. There were a lot of people who remembered him because it was a really memorable guest performance in that episode. But were you surprised when you came back in Tempus Fugit and Max, especially given the fact that you were the center point of that entire 2-part episode?
I remember I used to see David in the neighborhood every once in a while. He was living about 3 blocks away from me at the time, and we met for coffee a couple times when he was kind of getting himself settled in, and he said, "Yeah, we got to get that character back." And I said, "Well, I'm not going to say no. That'd be great." Re-delivered from his abduction, I guess, in some way. So, a year went by, and then a couple of years went by, and, nothing happened. And I sort of forgot about it. And then I kind of got this call. My agent got this call out of the blue saying, is Scott available on these dates? So, yeah, I was available. I think I'd made myself available anyway. So I go back. The first day on set for that 2-part episode in season 4. I'm in the makeup trailer, and it's my first day on, and then David kind of wanders in, and he says, the first thing he said to me is, "See, I told you I'd get you back." So he was true to his word.
Yeah, that's brilliant. It was David Duchovny who got you back on the show. I didn't know. That's great.
Well, I don't know. I think he may have had a voice in it, but the writers have all their plans and all that kind of stuff. So I don't really know what the story was. I imagine if I wasn't available, they would have had they would have tweaked the storyline to maybe include a different character or maybe create a new character or something like that. But I was really glad to be able to be a part of it. So then we started doing that. We started doing that 2-part episode. We were sort of shooting both episodes at the same time. I remember Kim Manners directed one of the episodes. He's passed away now.
Yeah, sadly.
Yeah, and I can't remember who directed the other one.
Rob Bowman?
Oh yeah, that's right. It was Rob Bowman. That's right. Yeah, so it was funny because we would shoot. It's like in the airplane. The airplane scenes did figure in both episodes, as I recall. So we do one shot with Kim, and then Rob would come and say, "Okay, this is for the the part 2." So let's so he'd take over. They were kind of going back and forth. So that was kind of interesting, shooting those 2 episodes at the same time. I'd never really done anything like that before. Yeah. What else do I remember? Oh gosh. Well, getting zipped into a body bag, that was a bit of an experience as well.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a real experience. They put a lot of resources into those episodes to make them great.
They were particularly good. I mean, it's season 4 is recognised by a lot of people as being one of the best seasons of the show, to be honest. But I've always really liked that 2-part episode because you can see, because it sort of ties to the big alien mythology of the show, but it's very much its own contained story as well, and it puts Max right at the very pivot of a story, which is a 2-part connected piece that really does stand the test of time, actually, as an episode, and it is really good. It's really well put together.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and look at it. It's been a while. But it was great to be a part of it. My friend Chilton Crane was in it. She played her character is called Sharon, I think, and it was great to work with her a little bit. And yeah, the other thing I'd say, when I'm going back, it was interesting going back for season 4 because what I'd mentioned before in season 1 about the crew kind of not really understanding what they had on their hands and all that kind of stuff. That was very, very different, obviously, in season 4. There's so much buzz about the show, and it really found its feet. And they had, there was a real strong sense going back into that production of, the production staff and crew really knowing what they were doing, really knowing what the show was, how to get the feel of it, all that kind of stuff. It was quite palpably different, I'd say.
Well, it's interesting as well because you were, but you would have had two of the most key directors, I guess, on those episodes, Rob Bowman and Kim Manners. They were two of the mainstays by that point. So I suppose the comparison must have been interesting between the 2 times you were on set from season 1 to season 4 in that way.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. There was just a real sense of we know where we are and we know what the show is and we know how to do it. So yeah, it was great.
Yeah. Well, how did you feel about Max being the center of the entire story? Because obviously in that second, in the 2-parter, you're playing him almost posthumously in a way, aren't you? Because it's pretty much, apart from the teaser, it's all then kind of flashbacks when you see him, and it's piecing together why he died. So how did you feel about them pivoting the whole thing around your character? That must have been quite interesting, because you said earlier that it could have been anybody, but I don't know. I think they wanted Max as somebody who people remembered from 3 years before. That's my instinct anyway.
I don't know. I mean, I thought it was he was such a cool character. I'd never really played anything like that before on film, although I had played a lot of sort of oddball characters on the stage quite a bit. So it was really fun. It was a really great character to play and super fun. And I just, I loved a lot of aspects of his personality and his desperation and his need to be heard and to have somebody understand what's going on and his need to reconnect with Mulder and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I thought it was a great idea to bring the character back. It was really joyful for me to kind of enter that character again and play him and just to be a part of the show and if they had an idea to center an episode around him, I was totally on board to be a part of that for sure.
Yeah, it's great, and like I say, it comes out really well. In terms of actually filming both of them, though, was there any? Which one was your favourite experience to film? Was it the very beginning when you were alive as the character in many senses, and you were interacting with David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson, or was it the 2-parter where like you said, you were on that amazing gimbal plane set and things like that? Was there one that stands out to you particularly as the favourite filming experience?
Oh, well, I mean, working on the 2-parter, it really felt like they were putting a lot of resources into those episodes. It felt like working on feature film. There was a lot of extras. There was a lot of technology involved. They had this whole crane apparatus for, moving my character, moving me out of my seat and out the door of the airplane and all this kind of stuff. There was this harness I had to put on, and then they did this sort of spring-loaded thing where they pulled me out of the door and threw me, out of the airplane and all this kind of stuff. And so that was very exciting. What I loved about the first episode that I did was working with David and Gillian early on in the show when they were trying to figure the show out, and the scenes were great and they were great, and the energy was everything was new about the show, so there was a lot of excitement about working on something like that. And I remember I remember feeling a lot of sympathy for Gillian Anderson because her character was the skeptic.
Yeah.
Her character was the one. Her character didn't run off passion. She ran off rationality. So she was the one who had to have these long explanations about why so and so couldn't be true, which meant her dialogue was more difficult.
Yeah.
She was the one who had to bring in science and method and procedure into all those scenes. So I just remember her, working so hard to master all that dialogue.
Yeah.
Whereas David's character was always running off of passion. And, it just seemed to run more easily through him. But I really enjoyed working with both of them. They were both top notch, and, there was they were just great people to be on set with. Yeah, I really enjoyed my time with them.
Did you get to see them much when you were shooting the two-parter? Because I don't know if, from what I recall, I don't know if you had any scenes with them. I don't think you would have done.
I have to go back and look at it. I don't think I had anything with her in the episode. But I had a couple of moments with David, so it was good to see him again. Yeah, no, I think my time with them was less for the two-parter for sure.
I've got a couple of questions because basically for the Xcast we've got a blog team of really big fans, and I mentioned that I was speaking to you, and I said, "Have you got anyone got any questions for Scott? When he comes on the show?" And one of the bloggers, Sam, she wonders if you were happy that Max was killed off, because she said she would have loved to have seen you become a future ally to Mulder and Scully. One of the characters who pops up every now and then. Did you mind that Max was being killed off in those episodes?
No. I mean, I was happy to do whatever the story required. I mean, my wish for the character to survive would have been more motivated by my desire to keep working as an actor on the character. You know what I mean? Yeah, I don't think I'd ever, until I was on that program, I'd never played a character on screen that had occurred before. So it was interesting to have that arc, especially over a 3-year time period, 3-season time period. So, yeah, I mean, I would have loved for the character to survive and have more to do in the show. Absolutely. No question. Was I sad when they killed him off? Yeah. But, that's the way, that's the way television goes. Sometimes it's for the greater, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a great character. We could have done a lot of different things with him just because his personality was so unique and all that kind of thing. But they had their reasons, and I have to respect that.
Yeah, and it was a similar question from one of the other bloggers, Baz, who said he asked if there was ever a plan for Max to become a recurring character, given the focus on him. But it's I guess it's the same thing, really, in that they had an idea, the writers, to bring him back to do this really interesting story around, and I don't suppose there was any conversation about him appearing more or you coming back or anything like that at any point, was there?
Well, if those conversations happened, they didn't happen with me. They wouldn't have, they have to, those kinds of things happen in a writer's room, those kinds of conversations, I think, But they happen between producers and writers and that kind of thing. And if they, if they were planning to have me back at some point, they didn't, that I wasn't part of that conversation. No, I just think that characters are there to serve purposes for, the main players, right? So the writers are going to do what they're going to do to serve the needs of the story. There was some talk about when they brought in the lone gunman. I think in the kind of way it was a sort of a development of the idea of the Max character. Yeah. Of people who are working individually or in small groups, kind of explore what else is going on out there. So in a certain way, I do feel like the character Max was a bit of a pioneer for those guys. He sort of brought in that idea of investigators.
I think that's spot on. In fact, when people tend to think about Max, I know that I've had conversations with other fans who've said he could have easily been one of the lone gunmen. He does fit that template very well. So it is almost a shame you didn't get to appear in that kind of way, or even become one of them, and appear with them. It's just, it does seem a little bit like a missed opportunity. It's great that he came back, but it is a bit of a shame. Just moving away then, just from the X-Files briefly. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, you've appeared in lots of different films and TV shows, many of which were filmed in Vancouver, obviously, like The Outer Limits, Smallville, Psych, all these different things. Yeah. Apart from Max, obviously, do you have any other particularly favourite roles that you've played over the years?
The one that jumps to mind immediately is the episode of Outer Limits that I was on where the story concerned two guys who were American Civil War enthusiasts.
Right.
Like they were part of these reenactor groups, and they got their photograph taken by, I think, a recurring character from that series, actually, a photographer played my buddy Alex Dyken, and it sent them back to the real American Civil War. And in that past, I played a Confederate major, and my commanding officer was played by Meatloaf.
What, the Meatloaf?
Yes, yes.
That's amazing.
Yes, he was so awesome to work with. Yeah, and he played my commanding officer who was kind of going off the deep end a little bit. He was sort of losing it. And he was, commanding, he was sending out these, I have to go back and look at it. There was we had to go back and rescue a stranded soldier from the woods somewhere. And yeah, he was, anyway, that's the thing that just jumped to my mind immediately was working on The Outer Limits with Meatloaf.
That's amazing. Did he sing? Did he sing at any point, Scott?
No, he didn't sing. He didn't sing, but he was great. He's a very good actor.
Yeah,
really great to work with.
I mean, I'm almost as excited by mentioning Alex Dyken because he appeared several times on the X-Files in small but really memorable roles.
Oh, he did. Oh, yeah.
And he was great every time he cropped up. In fact, he was in season 10 if I remember rightly. I'm sure he plays a hotel clerk in the new season.
Yeah,
he's great.
Oh, that's right. He was. That's right. I did see him there. Yeah. He's a good buddy of mine. We've done some shows together here. And he's great. Yeah,
he is. Yeah. What about movies? Has there been any particular movies that you've worked on that you've really enjoyed?
I was lucky enough to get a few days in the early '90s on the feature film version of Little Women.
Oh wow!
Susan Sarandon and Gabriel Byrne and Winona Ryder and it was just such a beautiful experience to work on that film. There was a lot of care and a lot of, it had a beautiful design. The people were great. It was, so great to do a period piece like that. And so that was quite memorable. I got to do a pretty fun film back then also with Jean-Claude Van Damme called Time Cop.
Time Cop. What a classic.
Yeah, I had played one of those characters who just sort of sits at a control panel and operates the time machine and all that kind of stuff.
Did you get scenes sort of in the same scene as Jean-Claude Van Damme? What was he like? If that's the case?
Yeah. He's a bit crazy, that guy. He's definitely a well-defined personality for sure.
Yeah,
but he was great. Yeah, he was super fun. And I mean, a lot of this stuff is from way back when. The fact is, I haven't worked in film a lot in the last 10 years or so. I've been concentrating mostly on theater. But I did get to work on an episode of Psych a couple of years ago. And I shot a film last year, a Canadian independent feature that just premiered at the Whistler Film Festival here. And the producer-director is currently trying to get it shopped around for distribution still. So, there's stuff happening. And, I've got a lot of open time in 2017. So I'm hoping to get back into the film side of things and see what I can cook up. So, yeah.
Well, that was going to be my next question, actually. What's in the pipeline? So, I guess you've kind of answered that, really. So there's going to be a mix of stuff.
I have a theater production I'm directing next summer, and other than that, it's sort of an open book. It's the old up and down with working as a performer. Mm. Sometimes you're I've had an incredibly busy year for 2016, and 2017 is more open right now, and who knows what'll come down the pipe.
It's exciting though, the possibility.
It is exciting. Yeah, I don't mind it. It's great to not sort of know what's happening. In the future, it's like an adventure.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got one final question for you, Scott, and this is something else that I ask everyone who comes on the show, and it's related to the X-Files in many ways, but it's a simple one. Do you believe in the paranormal?
Do I believe in the paranormal?
It's quite a big question, to be fair.
The short answer is yes. I believe that things occur which we do not yet have an understanding for. But I also believe that the future will continue to provide answers for us. We just have to be patient.
That's a nice bit of wisdom actually there, and I think there's a lot of truth to that. Yeah, definitely. It's always interesting what answers we get on that question. There's a real spectrum of people who say different things, but that's great. That's really good. Thank you. That's it, really. That brings us to the end of the interview. And I just want to say a huge thanks, Scott, for giving up your time and talking about stuff that's quite some time ago for you now.
It's a real dig through the memory banks here. It's pretty great.
Well, you've done well.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Tony. It was great to receive the invitation to talk to you, and I hope the fans enjoy it. And good luck with whatever happens next for you and your podcast. It's great.
Well, I appreciate that. Where can anyone find you then on social media or anywhere to follow what you're doing next or any of your projects and things like that?
Yeah, I've got a Twitter. I'm sort of semi-active on it. It's Bellis66. And gosh, where else can you find me? I don't know. That's you can usually find what I'm up to on that. So yeah, that's it.
Okay. That's brilliant. Thank you. Well, you can find us at the X_cast on Twitter and on Facebook at the Xcast page, and we've got a Facebook group, obviously, on there as well. If you can join us. We've got the Xcast blog on WordPress, and we're on iTunes. If you just give us a like and a review on there, that'd be brilliant to get us more known amongst the fan community. And you can email us at thexfcast@gmail.com with any comments or suggestions or anything you want to say about the X-Files. That'd be great. But we'll be back soon for a brand new episode, which I don't know what it's going to be at this point, but I never do. So we'll wait and see what comes out of the pipe. But yeah, a final big thanks to Scott, and we'll see you again soon. But remember, as always, trust no one. The Xcast is produced and presented by Tony Black, part of the Black Hole Media podcast network. Title music is courtesy of Will A, who you can find on Twitter at IamWillAYE.